People have asked me sometimes, hey Chris, when are you going to do a video about the VA? Well, today. Today I'm going to do a video about the VA. I don't have any videos about the process to submit a VA claim when you get out of the Army, or how to use the VA and how it works, or even any VA tips. So here we are. We're here to provide said video. For any of you that might be unaware, the VA, or Veteran Affairs, is the government-run agency that mostly is known for helping veterans with medical needs and compensations for service-connected disabilities or injuries, but they do other things like home loans and other things that I'm not going to be covering in this video. We're mainly going to be focusing on the medical side of VA. Now, I wouldn't call this a end-all, be-all, amazing guide to how to submit VA claims and everything about the VA or anything. It's more like a heads up as to what to expect from someone who's gone through the process. I'm sure there are some great individuals probably on YouTube, online, or whatever that know a ton about how the VA works, and maybe you can check them out and maybe get some input on how things kind of work from those individuals. But this is just me talking to you, telling you what the process is like. I've been through that process. I go through that process. I do some things with the VA and everything. So that's kind of what I want to cover here, is just give you a heads up. Now, when you're in the Army or even the military, it's important to make sure that your injuries and anything else is being documented. Now, I know in the Army that sometimes can be a bit of a struggle, right? Your leadership may be, giving you crap if you're trying to go to sick call, trying to go to see the medics, and it can be a little bit of a struggle sometimes to try to get some of these things documented. You obviously don't want to be ridiculous about it. It's called being malingering, right? If you're just going for every little thing that's not that big of an issue, then sure, maybe that can cause some problems. But you got some serious injuries going on. You hurt your knee, you hurt your back, you did some other sorts of things. You want to go see medics for that kind of stuff. But I know, at least for the Army side, it can be a little bit discouraging because your leadership may or may not. Maybe you have great leadership that is very encouraging of you going to sick call, but I've often seen some leadership that is kind of, strict about it, or kind of, a little rough on you. You're going to sick call to do some stuff, and they're going to give you some crap about it. Maybe they're going to let you go do it because they don't want to get in trouble, but they're probably going to still give you a lot of crap about going on sick call to go see those medics. But nonetheless, you got to take care of yourself. The main thing is that you could get injured, while doing your job in the United States Army or in the military, and it may not be a big deal now because you're young and you're trying to make a good impression on your leadership. You feel like you can bounce back from it, but later on down the road, those injuries could catch up with you. So it's important to get that stuff documented now, so that way if it does end up causing a problem later, then the VA can link that to an issue that you received some kind of treatment for, that you saw the medics for, or whatever the case is, and maybe get some kind of rating for it, or just receive some kind of special help for that. Now, just before you get out of the military, you're going to do a physical, right? You have a physical as part of your process for getting out of the Army, and that's when they're going to do an evaluation to kind of do a screening, try to look over your records, see what kind of things need to be documented, and that's also your time to bring up anything that maybe is not documented, right? If you have some other kind of problems, then you can get that examined, you get that checked out by the doctor there, so that way it can get added to your records. Possibly even during that screening, you might find out about things that you didn't even know that you had going on. Like, for example, in my case, right, when I went through that final physical, found out that I had a deviated septum. I didn't have that deviated septum when I joined the Army. I'm not even sure how I got that deviated septum, but nonetheless, I did end up having, a deviated septum when I got out of the Army, so that got documented onto my records. Now, some people are just eager to get that sweet DD-214, right? Get the hell out of the Army, get the hell out of the military, but you gotta make sure to take care of yourself. By the way, if you're interested in this awesome shirt, it's a shirt by Grunt Style, and if you utilize the link down in the description box down below, plus the promo code CHAOSARMY, you can save 20% off your very first purchase. They got a bunch of cool shirts for different branches of the military, but even shirts if you were never in the military, just shirts that got some cool, funny slogans on them, some cool designs, whatever. I definitely recommend checking out that link so you can see what kind of shirts they have to offer for somebody like yourself. Utilize that promo code CHAOSARMY so you can save 20% off. Now, typically before you're about to get out of the Army or out of the military, you're going to visit called the DAV office. That's somewhere probably on base, on post, that you'll visit as part of your process when getting out of the Army or out of the military. And that's where you'll probably be able to submit some information for your claim and everything. Somebody will be there to kind of help you with that claim and get everything kind of started. You will need your medical records, which you usually can request from the records office at your local hospital, on post, on base. You'll be able to have them submit probably a copy of your records to the VA, but I also usually recommend getting a copy for yourself just in case something happens and that the VA doesn't get your records. You have a copy that you can submit yourself if you need to. Someone at that DAV office should look over your records to kind of see what things are included in there. They might be eligible to receive some kind of rating for that. And then that info is going to get sent up to some other office at the VA to a person that will basically look over it and see, what things qualify for a rating, what things don't qualify for a rating, and then probably send out some kind of, a letter or something to try to get you to set up some appointments to get that stuff evaluated by another doctor. So then you have some kind of appointment with some individual that, probably documents some of the things that are going on, to document the severity of it, and then submits their findings up to the VA, and then they kind of decide on what the rating's going to be. I've seen this process go kind of different ways, right? It could, maybe take 2-3 months. I've seen it sometimes take longer. I've seen it sometimes take less time. It's really hard to kind of really narrow down how long this process can take. Typically, I would say definitely it should be less than a year, but the main thing usually is that whenever you submit your intent to file, you submit that information that you want to file for your VA claim, if it does take 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever, they're going to backdate you from the date you submitted. So they're going to want to get that stuff submitted. They're going to want to get that stuff kind of processed anyways, but if they do take a long time, they'll back pay you for it. Once they've finally gone through their whole process, they've made their determination of what your percentage is going to be, what things you're being rated for. You usually receive some kind of letter in the mail. They also have like a VA website that you can create an account and be able to log into and check on the claim status of that. But you'll probably get some kind of letter also in the mail that'll give you results as well. Now, if you don't agree with the rating, you feel like it's too low, you feel like there's things that they didn't rate you for, you do have options to be able to appeal it and be able to submit why you feel like that should be different, or maybe have someone else kind of look over your information. Sometimes in those scenarios, somebody will contact somebody at the DAV to work with a representative. They kind of look over, your information and everything, your proof and everything, to kind of see where things can be kind of modified, what additional things you can submit to help your case a little bit better. Some people also kind of utilize these lawyers that are kind of VA experts that does usually cost some kind of fee or whatever, and those individuals are pretty knowledgeable about what you can do to increase your chances of getting the rating boosted up or getting rated for certain things that maybe you didn't get rated for. So there's a lot of options for you if you don't agree with your rating. It's not guaranteed that if you go through those options that they are going to be able to increase it, but it could help, right? Some people like to utilize that, and some people have had success by going that kind of avenue because they didn't realize that, hey, I needed to submit this to get a stronger case, but it doesn't always work out, so it just kind of depends. But those are avenues you can kind of explore if you want to increase that rating or appeal that rating. Now, when you do receive your rating, you'll have different things that'll be rated at different percentages, but don't think that if you get, rated 50% for one thing and then 50% for another thing, that, hey, that equals 100%. Sure, normal math does equal 100%, but VA math does not equal 100%. VA math is kind of crazy. And in fact, in that scenario, 250% for your overall rating is actually going to equal 75%, but they do round up, so it's going to be 80%. But depending on where you kind of land, if you would have landed at 74%, they want to round it down to 70%. But if you land at 75% or above, they're going to round up to the next higher one, which would be 80%. So 250% actually equal 75%. That gets rounded up to 80% of an overall VA rating disability. In fact, even adding a third 50% still doesn't bring you up to 100%. In fact, that would actually bring you to 88%, which would be rounded up to 90%. There is actually a website that you can kind of do some different scenarios with. You can simply probably Google VA disability calculator or something like that, and you can probably find a calculator to be able to help you to determine, if I got a 10%, a 20%, an 80% or whatever, what's my overall grading going to be? And those websites can kind of be helpful to kind of figure that out. Now, even if you get something let's say something that shows a 0% rating, that does still mean that it is service connected. So yeah, you won't get any kind of, disability compensation for that, but nonetheless, it is related to service connected. So if you need to get some kind of treatment for it, you can, or if it becomes worse, it's already service connected. So that can help you to be able to easily maybe increase the rating if it did become worse than it was when you initially got evaluated for it. If you do receive a rating of 10% or more, then that means that you'll be able to receive some kind of compensation for that, which means direct deposit into your checking account or whatever monthly on the first of every month. And if it's a permanent rating, then you can receive that for the rest of your life. If it's not a permanent rating, then that likely means that they're going to want to reevaluate you maybe in 5 years to decide if your rating needs to decrease or increase or just stay the same. And if it needs to be changed to a permanent rating, then they'll kind of make that determination. And you can also do other things appeal it to say that, hey, I don't believe this should be a temporary rating. I don't want to wait the 5 years or whatever to get reevaluated. You can do some appeal process to even try to make it a permanent rating anyways if you want to. But nonetheless, if you have something that's not a permanent rating, you do still receive compensation for that because you have a rating for it. There are VA disability charts online. You can find out like how much percentage will get you this much per month and everything. So you can kind of figure that out. It does definitely like depend on like if you're single compared to if you're married with some kids. As if you're married with some children, then your rating kind of does, get you more of a value, I guess. You get paid more because you're married and have children compared to if you're a single individual with a VA disability rating. But for an example, just let's say from the very beginning, right? For an example of an overall rating of 10%, that would give the veteran $165.92 every month on the first of the month. And then of course, if you have higher than 10%, then it's obviously gonna be more. But one of the key things also to note is that this VA compensation that you receive monthly is not taxed. It's not gonna like income tax where they're gonna take taxes out of it. And then that's what you get before taxes. And then after taxes, you get this, or you have to claim that on your taxes. No, it's a tax-free compensation. It's a tax-free benefit that veterans earn when they get out of the military. So you don't have to pay taxes on your VA disability compensation. There are also several like different benefits that veterans can receive based on their percentage rating, and it's a lot of stuff that I would have to cover in this video. So maybe another video if you're interested in that kind of a thing. So if you are interested in that, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you're leaving a comment down below so that way I know you're enjoying this type of content. And if I see that you're enjoying it, maybe that can be another video a little bit later on down the road where I can talk about some of the different benefits you receive if you have this percentage or that percentage. But let's kind of get into some tips. I have a couple of tips that I want to kind of help provide you that I think are beneficial to someone who's about to get out of the military, or even someone who already got out of the military that maybe is going to be going through the VA process. I would recommend getting enrolled in the VA healthcare system. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of horror stories, but I definitely think it kind of depends on the individual. I don't use it all that often, maybe like once, maybe twice a year kind of a thing, just for some like routine checkups. And I've always had some positive experiences. I've never had any really issues, but individuals that I have seen that maybe do use it a little bit more frequently because they got a little bit more messed up, right? They got a little bit more kind of injuries, more things that they need treatment for. Then that's kind of when, kind of the odds kind of start to work against you a little bit. And then maybe you do have a better chance of having a little bit more horror story or a little bit more negative kind of experience with the VA. But me, in that very few times that I kind of work with them and do anything with them, it's been pretty easy and everything's worked out just fine. But I've talked to also a lot of individuals that, do go to the VA pretty often and they have a hard time getting appointments. The appointments are pretty far out, which usually if the appointments are more than 30 days out, then they can outsource it to a civilian doctor to take care of you. But there's a lot of other kind of stories that probably people have heard out there, but nonetheless, it's basically free healthcare essentially for that veteran. Now, for the most part, like a lot of your treatment has to be related to like your service-connected items or your service-connected injuries that you received. But I've seen a lot of cases where you can get treated for things that are not service-connected to you and they don't charge you anything, or maybe sometimes they charge you some really small copay. But nonetheless, it's pretty decent, for most part. I've also seen some people where they kind of have both VA healthcare plus their own medical insurance, and they kind of, offset it a little bit and kind of utilize it in certain ways just to kind of, give them an advantage of certain kind of aspects. Maybe for certain things they go see a civilian doctor for, and then certain minor things or, whatever type of thing they go see the VA for, that kind of thing. So you can kind of work it however you really need to do it, but I definitely recommend getting enrolled in the VA healthcare system. Now, another thing I definitely recommend is before you go to that doctor to get evaluated for like a claim, right? You're trying to get a claim for your knees, your back, whatever the case is, a little bit of research should be done before you go see that doctor. Now, I'm gonna explain this tip, and it could be used in a negative way, but I don't want you to use it in a negative way. Let me explain this. What you should do is you should look up online what is the criteria for this percent for that condition, for that percent for that condition, all that kind of stuff, right? Sometimes you can easily find that online by searching for it. It may not be 100% accurate, but it does kind of give you a ballpark. For example, sometimes you might find online if you're trying to find out, okay, I'm trying to get a claim for my knees, and then you can find sometimes online what is the criteria for receiving 10% for your knees? What is the criteria for 20, 30, so on and so forth? And like I said, some people could use that for like, trying to scam the system to try to get a higher rating because, hey, now I know what to complain about and what to try to do to get that higher rating. But I don't recommend doing that because if they realize that that's what you're doing, it could really hurt you in the end. And maybe that could be a difference between you getting accepted or denied for this. And now you got denied for it altogether. And now you got nothing for that claim when you should have gotten something for it, but you were trying to like scam the system, get higher. Now you have to go through a whole appeals process and a bigger kind of hassle. So don't use this to try to scam the system. The reason to kind of do it is that you might not know the right things, the right terminology to make sure to bring up to the doctor. And let me give you kind of a little bit of an example of that, maybe with like, let's say you have some problems with your knees. So the difference with the different ratings in the knees, just as an example, not this is actually the criteria, but let's say that, to get 20% requires that, you have a little bit limited in motion of your knees or whatever, and they hurt a little bit, but to get 30%, it has to affect your sleeping. And it does affect your sleeping, but you didn't think about that, right? You're just like, oh, my knees hurt, I can't move it very well. And if you don't bring up that it also kind of affects my sleep, it could be a difference in the rating, because the doctor may just be kind of evaluating physically, but they're not specifically looking for specific things to get you a certain rating. They're just kind of doing their evaluation to be able to submit that to higher. When they submit their findings for everything that you're kind of claiming about and everything that they're looking at and everything, somebody else at the VA is going to look at all these findings, and based on the wording that the doctor gave is going to decide what does that meet for criteria for a percentage. And if, like I said, you left out that it does affect your ability to get a good night's sleep because you didn't think about bringing that up, you didn't think that mattered, then that's not worded into the doctor's notes and everything. So now your percentage might be lower than it could have been. So I recommend not using it maliciously, but looking at it to make sure that if you have these symptoms that qualify for this rating or that rating or that rating, make sure that stuff gets brought up to the doctor so that way it doesn't get left out. But don't just make this up and be like, oh man, if I say this, I can get 80% for this rating, so I'm just gonna say that. Well, if they decide and they notice that, hey, you're making that crap up, they might just deny your claim altogether. So hopefully this helps to kind of give you a heads up as to what to expect, right? I definitely recommend going to talk to the DAV to get more info from somebody else other than just me type of thing. But I wanted to kind of make sure that you got some kind of a heads up as to what the process might be like, a little bit of tips and everything, and at least know who to go talk to. That's usually the DAV, the Department of Veteran Affairs individuals. Usually there's a location on base, usually there's locations locally around a certain area type of thing, but talking to those individuals, sometimes they can really help you out with those claims. If you found this information available, make sure you share it with someone that maybe might also benefit from this information. Also, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, you're liking the video, you're commenting, you're checking out the links down in the description box down below to follow me on social media. I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.